Every founder needs to ask this of themselves. Am I building the right business or just the one that I thought I was supposed to? For too long, entrepreneurs and business owners have been told they have to choose between profit and purpose. If you're tired of burning out, done chasing someone else's version of success, and ready to grow with more purpose, prosperity, and peace of mind, you're in the right place. Because every business has the potential to do good and do well. I'm Chase Friedman, and this is In Pursuit of Purpose, where strategy meets soul. Today, we're diving into one of the biggest myths in business, the belief that profit and purpose are mutually exclusive. Spoiler alert, they're not. I'm going to share with you some of my own experiences living in both extremes, breaking down why I think this paradox keeps a lot of founders and entrepreneurs stuck in either burnout mode or broke, and reveal some of the traps that we get into as entrepreneurs that help fuel it. This is all about belief and what we believe or are forced or told to believe as entrepreneurs, that we have to make this binary choice between profit and purpose. Most importantly, I'll give you some practical, simple things that you can do to start doing today in your business to hopefully bring back those two things together. So let's get into it. So if you've ever felt torn between making money and making meaning in your life, this episode hopefully is going to change how you think about growth. Oftentimes, we are consistently bombarded with the mantra and message of growth at all costs, right? Most founders are told they have to pick a side of the coin. On one side, it's profit. And on that side of the coin, that's all you see. And that is all your singular vision and focus is on growing the company, growth at all costs. On the other side, singular pursuit in its own right, purpose, right? We are driven by blind passion. We have this big dream, but we're not always focusing on how we're going to sustain it, right? Make revenue, grow that impact. So a lot of us, myself included, we've lived a lot of our entire business life, our lives in general, standing flat on one face of that coin, either chasing money at all costs or chasing meaning without the means to sustain it. But what if you didn't have to choose just one side, right? Instead, what if we learn to balance on the edge of that coin and being able to see both sides, both perspectives at once, and finding that balance to hopefully move forward with a little bit more meaning and momentum. Another way to think about it is kind of like fueling up your car, right? Think of profit as the gas. It keeps you moving. But purpose, right? Your direction, your why, it's kind of the map. It's the roadmap. It's the compass, like we like to call it. It gives you direction. So if you only have the gas, you can just keep driving, but you'll burn out driving in circles. You'll eventually run out of gas. If you only have the map, you'll know where you want to go, but you're never going to get there. So again, finding that balance, finding that pursuit where you can do good and do well, or as I like to say, profit with purpose. I know this from experience. I've lived on both sides of the coin. Early in my career, pursuing a career in filmmaking, very much, starving artist mentality. I had a huge passion for the craft, but I realized that it wasn't going to be sustainable, or at least to build the type of life that I wanted, to build a family financially and just the logistics of trying to chase that dream of being a filmmaker. So I had a lot of passion, a lot of purpose, but missing that profit, quite frankly. And then I made a pivot. I made a shift. I left that world and I started a business, my very first business, not really knowing what I was getting into. But from what I was told and shown, or I probably listened to, whether it's on social media or in society in general, it became this obsession around growth and growth at all costs, right? I reached a point where on paper, it looked like I had everything I was seeking, right? 7-figure revenue, big team, plenty of clients. On paper, things were looking great. But inside, truthfully, I was miserable and I was getting burnt out time and time again because I completely lost sight of my why and why I started this thing in the first place. I was disconnected. So as I've shared with you, I have been through seasons where I have been on either side of the coin, having this kind of blind spot around how to combine the two. And I've seen the other side too, as a filmmaker, pursuing my dream, fueled by passion, but it wasn't going to be sustainable. I didn't have the financial stability I needed, and I saw it to build wealth, to build a family. I knew I needed something more. And in my work today, I work with plenty of brilliant visionary founders with beautiful missions who never really build a sustainable model. They don't come at it with a strategy. It's all vision and a lot of why, but unfortunately not a sustainable model. They've got purpose without much profit. This binary, this conflict and tension between the two is what I believe and what I call the profit purpose paradox. There's this false belief in business culture that you have to choose. You have to make a choice between doing good and doing well. That profit with purpose or profit and purpose are mutually exclusive, two separate paths. And you've got to pick one. Growth at all costs, right? You're chasing profit. It's all about hustle, harder, scale faster, do more, this badge of busyness, whatever you want to call it. But in my case, and I think in a lot of cases, something we don't talk about is burnout. When you hit burnout along the way, I don't think that's a sustainable path for many of us. And sometimes that's just the price of success. Some people can deal with it better than others. On the other side, you're told to chase this purpose, chase this big, beautiful why and change the world, follow your passion, make an impact, change the world. But if you can't pay yourself or your team, and if you're constantly strapped for cash, at least you think, at least I'm doing what I love. But you can't do it for very long. Both those paths sound noble in their own way, but I think both of them are going to inevitably lead to dead ends. So what if we can have both? And my belief is that all people, all businesses can find a balance, can have both, a profit with purpose, doing good and doing well in life. When you're focused on revenue and growth at all costs, sure, you make money, but it starts to drain you. It drains your team, it erodes your energy until you're left wondering why you're even doing this in the first place. So this paradox isn't just about business strategy. It's fueling, quite frankly, an epidemic of burnout, of stress, mental health struggles among entrepreneurs and, quite frankly, teams, people everywhere. Here's what we're facing right now as a society. Burnout is at an all-time high. So over 60% of founders report feeling burnt out at least once a week. 1 in 3 are saying they feel constantly on the edge of exhaustion. How is that normal? How is that becoming normalized? Why does that need to be the norm? Or will we just kind of blindly accept as part of the path? Does it have to really be that way? I think we see all around us, mental health struggles are spiking. Studies are showing that entrepreneurs are twice as likely to experience depression, something I've dealt with throughout my life and career. In a lot of cases, entrepreneurs 3 times more likely to suffer from substance abuse. I know there's a lot of people that try to ignore or quell that stress with substances or other distractions. But we're feeling this chronic anxiety, sometimes more than the general population. When you're an entrepreneur, you put everything on your shoulders. You wear all these hats and you feel like you can't ever turn off. Even as an employee, right? Employee disengagement, we're familiar with quiet quitting and the great resignation. It's rampant, right? So this is costing businesses over $1 trillion a year. And disengaged employees, it's like 30-40% of their salary and lost productivity. Meaning if you're just showing up for a job without any sort of greater reason for being, greater purpose and mission, you're not going to put everything into it. Right. So as a business owner, it behooves you to engage your employees and not just the bottom line, but something more meaningful. You're going to get more out of them, more collaboration, more productivity. Purpose-driven companies, right? Those that, and I don't just mean top down, pin a mission statement on your wall, but purpose-driven companies that actually, walk the talk, they outperform the competition by over 400% in the marketplace. Mission-led brands, brands that really go a step further in terms of leaning into their cultural values, what their greater mission is, their belief beyond the bottom line, they enjoy, even a 20% higher pricing power. So those last 2 things we're talking about, both being able to leverage yourself and differentiate yourself from the competition, right? By having a deeper purpose behind just the product or the price or the features. And then higher pricing power, that's margin, right? Being able to charge a higher margin for your products, right? So there's a real ROI to this. Companies with engaged employees tend to outperform their competitors by over 200%. So you're getting more out of an engaged, inspired team. Whether you call it stakeholder-driven capitalism or conscious consumerism, customer trust overall is collapsing. Right? People are demanding more from the products and brands they do business with. 82% of customers say they make buying decisions based on a brand's values, something that connects to them on a deeper, more emotional level. And we know through research and data, people buy on emotion first, right? So why not tap into that? And yet most businesses we see out there still treat purpose as fluff, not strategy. I think it's bullshit. A lot of people roll their eyes, but purpose isn't fluff, it's fuel. And there is true business impact and ROI that proves that. So spoiler alert, It's not fluff. It's something more meaningful that can generate an advantage in margin and market share and employee retention and recruitment and engagement. More investment firms want to invest in these purpose-driven organizations. So again, this is not a trend. This is a movement, especially generationally, in terms of this next level of Gen Z and beyond, what they are demanding from the jobs that they take on and the businesses they want to create and the companies they want to purchase from. So we're talking margin, market share, productivity, innovation. When you look out across this sea of sameness in the marketplace, this competitive commoditization of all these lookalike brands chasing the same customer, deploying the same tactics, the same messaging, this is what's considered red ocean, right? They're often competing on the same price, right? These are finite differentiation tactics, right? Price, product, features. Only a few can win at that game, and I think we know who they are. The model of the 4 Ps, and there's a lot of different kind of marketing strategy for differentiation out there. Quite frankly, I think it's seen its day. I think we need to look at something deeper, and that's something that I call purpose positioning. How are we supposed to differentiate ourselves in the market? We got to lean into something that comes naturally from within, right? Something that you can't manufacture, that your competitors can't replicate, taps into a deeper emotion with your customers, aligning with them on a deeper level. It's quite frankly is going to build trust and loyalty. So we'll get into this in another episode, but this is what I like to refer to as purpose positioning. I believe this is and will be the most critical positioning strategy of our generation. The days of 4 Ps and trying to race to the bottom in terms of price, long gone. So let's be clear. This isn't just about margins, market share, economics. We get that, but it's also about the mental and emotional stability, sustainability of the people building these businesses. This is why I really want this first season to be all about belief. Belief in yourself, belief in your business, belief that you don't have to keep choosing between profit and purpose or subscribing to someone else's vision of success, leading to ultimately, where I've been and a lot of us have been, burning yourself out in the process. I think the old model is broken. And I do believe that belief is the first step towards something better. Let's get into the 3 traps that businesses and entrepreneurs fall into in terms of this paradox, right? Number 1 is commoditization. As I just said, there are more brands and more competitors out there than ever before. How is someone supposed to choose what is right for them? Features, price, they only get you so far, right? And they certainly don't create a deeper loyalty and bond with the customer you're trying to attract. So commoditization. The challenge is without that defining purpose, right? Something deeper, something more, every brand ends up sounding the same. It all kind of blurs together into white noise. Then you continue to kind of exist in this red ocean. You're competing on price, shrinking margin, and it's just a race to the bottom. So in this noisy AI-driven world, features and benefits, again, continue to just not be enough to make you stand out of the pack, stand out and stand up. Anybody can replicate those. The only thing that no one can really truly copy is your belief and your conviction. And I don't just mean something you say internally to yourself or your team, but what you put out there and show into the world. What's the result of this commoditization? I mean, you name it, right? Customer churn, losing market share, losing trust, getting lost in the noise, no ability to differentiate. It's endless. You cannot afford to not lean in a little bit deeper to try to survive in this current landscape. Here's an exercise. 1 sentence, 1 thought. Ask yourself, why do we exist beyond money? The way I like to define purpose as it pertains to brand is, what do you believe in beyond the bottom line? It sounds simple, but dig a little deeper. Ask that question of yourself and be willing to sit with it if necessary. Stay uncomfortable until it becomes abundantly clear. I promise it will, in time, become energizing and inspiring. And this doesn't mean that this is going to be this defining purpose next month, next year. It's a constantly evolving process, and it's a constant question you need to ask of yourself. But once you find that out, that becomes your sort of North Star, your compass, your map, like we talked about earlier. Don't just talk the talk. Don't just put it on a pitch deck or the headline of your website. Ask your customers, ask your team, ask your peers how they view you, test it on them, see if it resonates. It shouldn't just be coming from the top down. It can also be bottom up. So anchor your differentiation as a brand in belief and not features. Instead of competing on price, speed and features, make your beliefs the reason people choose you. And I promise you'll be able to stop going out and hunting and chasing down customers, and instead they will be attracted and magnetized to you and your message. The second trap we see, fragmentation, right? Without that singular vision and purpose and why and reason for being, we tend to chase and deploy a lot of short-term fixes to longer-term problems, meaning we don't have a singular coherent strategy. I think purpose is the core of business strategy. And measuring everything we do against that. So we end up deploying all these disconnected tactics, running ads, running funnels, running content without a unifying voice or strategy. And it not only feels chaotic to us, but to our customers. It's not clear. Skipping strategy, and I get this all the time. Clients come to us and come to me and say, I need more social media followers. I need more impressions. I need all the end results, but they're not looking at the foundation. They're not looking at what comes before, a clear and compelling why and reason for being and messaging and identity that when deployed properly will help sort of rise the collective tide, let all those other marketing tactics perform even better. So, again, how do you craft that compelling strategy? It doesn't have to be overly complex, right? I think less is more, but it does start with a clarifying purpose. Once you have that, every business decision that you make should be measured and tested against this. This gives you clarity and consistency on your course. You should be looking back at that statement and that belief and that vision, saying, all right, does this new tactic or does this new product, does this new service or initiative align with our values? We talked with another guest who shared, there was a slight inflection point in their career where they said yes to a client or a project that didn't feel quite aligned, but financially it was going to be great. It made a lot of sense for them. It could generate a lot of revenue. Saying yes enough times in that direction will slowly veer you off course. So you got to have something back to anchor it back to, some singular vision of why you started this business. Remember, we talked about needing a map driving the car. This is that map. And without it, growth is going to stall. Teams are going to burn out or spin. And founders, quite frankly, get exhausted because they're kind of driving in circles. Something you could do about it, pick one sort of North Star goal for the next 90 days, right? Have singular focus on that. I'm not saying it's the only thing you should be doing, but have singular focus and energy on whether it's realignment of your brand identity and messaging, getting really clear and really tight across the board in the story you were telling your consumers and your audience, which I always recommend kind of first to set a good foundation. Or if you're in growth mode, you're doing a multi-channel content marketing campaign, everything you create should embed that consistent narrative, that theme, and that vision. Don't just chase SEO and what you think people are searching for. Make sure to weave in and embed that consistent narrative of why you guys exist so that your customers, the more that they interact with you, the more touch points, the more they read, the more they consume, this begins to resonate and be memorable for them. Try to adopt that rule. There's a great book on this. I think it's called Essentialism. Do less, but do it better, right? So we tend to spread ourselves out wide and thin, but try to narrow and go deeper. Third trap, burnout loops, right? As we talked about, this is not just about economics, it's about mental health and resilient sustainability as business owners. When you're kind of looking at profit only and revenue as your only metric, subscribing to this, we see it all the time on Instagram and LinkedIn, and this hustle culture, this badge of business, how full is your calendar, this breakdown, that doesn't usually lead to great results. And again, on the flip side, purpose only, right? You can get mission fatigue, you get fragility. That purpose can ring hollow if you're not able to really build the belief and the proof, the profit, the revenue to continue to sustain it and have that greater impact. So again, both extremes erode conviction and drain energy and kill momentum. Find that common ground, find that balance. What we're left with a lot of times is these burnt out leaders, disengaged employees, flatline businesses. So ask yourself a question, am I chasing revenue at the expense of my purpose and my energy? What am I sacrificing by saying yes to some of these deals, these clients that on paper look good or pay you a bunch of money, but may not be aligned? What are you sacrificing for that? Not just right now, but in time. Or all passion, all heart, without at the expense of sustainability, right? Make sure that you have that strategic roadmap in place so that you can kind of run this thing long term. One of the things I've learned to do, and I'm still learning, is protecting sort of white space on my calendar, setting boundaries. There's this always on mindset that we adapt or adopt. Time is the greatest commodity we have. So don't trade your time just for money. Try to protect it. Try to use it to kind of recharge, re-energize, get clear on your mission and your vision, and go from there. Again, document these processes. So the mission doesn't just live only in your head. I see it all the time, this purpose paradox, right? Where you get a visionary leader that has a purpose in their head at the top, but they don't communicate it down through every channel or echelon of their company. If you were to ask someone who is day-to-day boots on the ground, oftentimes they would have no idea that this is the purpose of the company. So make sure this is not just something that you say to kind of flex or look good, sound good. Make sure this is something that truly resonates at every level of your company and that honestly your customers believe and your team believes. So here's the shift, right? The real move isn't choosing one side of the coin in these polar fields and opposites. It's about learning to balance on the edge and have perspective of both and how you can have profit and purpose, doing good and doing well. Profit with purpose can give you speed, but no direction. Purpose without profit can give you direction, but no fuel. But together, that's when you get momentum. That's when the flywheel starts spinning. That's when you feel what is called being in flow. You are enjoying what you're doing. You're almost losing a sense of time and you are profiting. You are earning more money and you're doing a better job for yourself and your clients. Growth does not have to be a grind. Right? It can be sustainable. It can be energizing and inspiring. So again, if you're ready to stop running on fumes or chasing shiny objects and start building something that actually lasts and you want to show up for every day, that's purpose-driven growth. Not just some fluffy feel-good idea, but I do believe it's the only way forward in a marketplace that's continuing to be noisier, faster, more demanding than ever. When you get this right, you don't just scale revenue, you scale conviction and belief and trust and peace of mind. You build a business that you love, that your team loves, that your customers love to support. They'll go to bat for you. So that's the shift. This paradox is made to be broken. Okay? It doesn't have to be this way. And quite frankly, everyone's journey is different. So it's time to stop subscribing to what we've been trained and sold and told to do to achieve the defined version of success. You got to find what works for you. You got to find your purpose. You got to find the balance that feels right for you. Everyone is running their own race at their own pace. So if this resonated with you, and I hope it does, share this with another founder kind of stuck in the paradox, pay it forward, because like I said, this is a movement. And hopefully one step at a time, we can build not only more profitable businesses, but ones that do good in the world and feel good at the same time. I appreciate you tuning in today. I hope this brought you a bit of confidence, clarity, and conviction on your business journey. If something here resonated, do me a favor, leave a quick review or share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. It goes a long way in helping more people find the show and start their own journey. And as always, you'll find all the resources and ways to connect with me in the show notes. Now, go take that next step in building the business you've been dreaming of. Wishing you continued purpose, prosperity, and peace of mind.